There are just some bands that should have been bigger. Amazing riffs, great live performances and songs. They had slots in the Ozzfest, featured on MTV2 and Headbangers Ball, and yet we never hear their name come up. My name's Jay Sky, and over the past couple years, I've seen the band name Nothingface show up in the comments of my videos. I knew a couple of their songs, but never really the whole story, and naturally I was curious and I had to find out more. So today, I'm taking a deep dive into the history, the music, the lineup changes, the drama, and the legacy of Nothingface, who some would say is the most underrated metal band. Like most bands, Nothingface started with two friends jamming out for fun, exploring ideas inspired by the music they loved. The bassist Bill Gall and the drummer Chris Hauck were playing and living together in Damascus, Maryland. And this is where they started the band Nothingface. The guys were determined to find the ultimate lineup for the band, so Chris went out and put an ad up seeking band members in a local publication called Rocks Magazine. And this is where they connected with Tom Maxwell, the future guitarist of the band. Tom was an experienced rock DIY guitarist living out in Baltimore, with tons of experience playing in different bands and clubs all around the scene. He sent a demo cassette to the guys, and they were blown away by his skills and amazing ability to write catchy grooves. The band then added the vocalist David Gabbard. They knew him from just being a part of the local scene. All these bands would trade players, and they just knew each other from hanging out and stuff like that. And with Dave on board, this solidified the original lineup of the band, and they named themselves Nothingface. When these guys finally got together, they were so determined and on the same page that they locked in and made 3 demo tapes. And this was enough to complete a full album as well. The influence was definitely a combination of, say, Nine Inch Nails, Alice in Chains, very grunge, but with a harder rock edge than you would typically hear from like a band like Nirvana. At the time, this fit in so well to the local scene because grunge was taking off in the mainstream. As time went on, the guys all wanted to play heavier music, and this kind of pushed out David from the group as his vocals weren't a perfect fit for it. This shift created a stylistic difference with Gabbard. He reportedly disagreed with the band's heavier trajectory and left in 1995. And this is where things started to get interesting. And just a side note, a lot of bands have pivoted as they were changing their sound. Same goes with Pantera, Evermore, and even Van Halen. Despite David Lee Roth being so good at martial arts. Around this time, Nothingface was allowing the local band Ingredient 17 to record demos at their house. This is where they heard Matt Holt sing for the very first time. So impressed by Matt's vocals, they asked Matt to try out some of the new material. The crazy part is, he was nearly a decade younger than the guys. I think he was just finishing high school. He might have been 17. They loved what he did, and they knew it would elevate the music and take it to the next level. He had a crazy amount of range between his vocals, singing, cleans, screaming, and just different variations. As you would hear with a lot of singers, for example, like Tala or the singer of Korn, they have a lot of range and tools in the trick bag that really just make it special. Tom Maxwell later said that the classic lineup officially came together May 5th, 1995. Matt joined, and they finally recorded a self-titled album. You can already hear how Matt's voice adds a unique intensity, a mix of melodic range and raw screams that really made the band stand out. This is a turning point because the grunge days were over and they were merging into the heavier alternative versions of themselves that they always wanted to be. It was around this time that they started to gain real momentum and traction within the DC music scene, and they caught the attention of Decide Records. Like many bands, the label had them re-record a lot of the material. They added to it, they made better mixes, probably just tracked things again, and this album, which is very similar to the self-titled one, is called Pacifier. At this stage, critics compared them heavily to Korn, some even calling them the Korn clone. I don't really hear that. They don't really sound much like Korn, but I do understand the inspiration just with the drop tune guitars and the screaming and just different vocals tonally. But one thing I can say for certainty is that they did have a place in this new metal wave. But here's the thing, Nothingface didn't rap, they didn't lean into hip hop elements, and they weren't chasing trends. I could genuinely hear the heart and soul of this band from early records. Like, they continue to evolve, the songs get better, but a lot of the core heart of the band never goes away. If you listen closely, what sets Nothingface apart is Holt's voice, shifting between harsh screams and surprisingly melodic passages. By 1998, labels were aggressively hunting for darker, heavier bands, and Nothingface signed with TVT Records, who reissued Pacifier under the title Nothingface with remixes and changes once again. Later in 1998, the guys released an audio guide to Everyday Atrocity. The song Sleeper was always one of my favorites from the album and felt very Pantera inspired. You could hear it at the end of this breakdown. This album marked the shift, pushing them far away from the Korn comparisons and into something tighter, darker, and more aggressive. They toured relentlessly, sharing stages with Ministry, Soulfly, Helmet, and so many others, building a national following. In 2000, the album Violence hit shelves via TVT Records. This became their most successful release to date. The single Bleeder peaked at 32 on the US mainstream rock charts.
It's not ending. What's it to you?
The album also charted on Heatseekers and was on the top of the indie charts. And over time, Nothingface's fourth studio album would collectively sell over 500,000 copies worldwide. They toured with Pantera, played Tattoo the Earth, and launched a second stage slot on Ozzfest 2003. But their success, unfortunately, came with Turmoil. I do have to say, from someone who's played in a lot of bands and am just very up to date with the history of a lot of groups, staying together, personalities, being on the same page, health, life, all that stuff is probably the hardest thing for a band to do. The common thread is that they love playing music, but it's everything else in between that often breaks the group up. Look at Guns N' Roses. All the success in the world, all the money, all the girls, yet they couldn't stand the tour together. Metallica spent $40,000 a week for a therapist so they could make music together and do like the coolest job in the world. So if they have trouble doing it at that level, what do you think's going on with these guys? Then the bass player left the group to pursue being a music producer. I'm sure he had a lot of connections and more opportunities because of the growth of the group. And maybe he saw the writing on the wall just with everything happening. I know he was super tight with the drummer. And it's like, yo, if my bro's not here and we start the group together, fuck this. I'm gonna go make some money and do my own thing. During the recording of Violence, Chris, the drummer, had to step away from recording and touring because of medical health issues. The bassist, Bill, who was his homie, also took a leave of absence from the group. He also went through a divorce during his time away. The singer Matt Holt's house burned down and Tom Maxwell's mom passed away. It just felt like one thing after another was happening with these guys, and perhaps Nothingface was doomed. The band nearly collapsed under the weight of it all. Then came the album Skeletons in 2003. This is arguably their most diverse record, heavier in some moments, more melodic in others, and far more politically outspoken. They critiqued US foreign policy, corporate corruption, religion, and social hypocrisy. Skeletons is my personal favorite. It's heavier, more focused, and you can hear the political edge coming through in every single riff. This album was so successful, it landed them a spot on the Ozzfest in 2003. And this is a career changer for a band at their level. It could make them or it could break them. But they ended up dropping off the tour early because of label conflicts and just a bunch of shit going on with the band. On top of this all, in the most important moment for the band, Holt was suffering from medical conditions as well. Unfortunately, they started missing dates and ultimately dropped off of the festival. Tension between Holt and Maxwell intensified. In February 2004, Nothingface officially disbanded, citing musical differences and the lack of label support. I don't really know exactly what went down with the label, but I could imagine with so many members coming in and out, especially the pioneers of the group, that the label was losing confidence. They didn't want to back them. It cost a lot of money. And they were like, yo, if you guys don't have your shit together, you're fucking done. And it's hard not to feel for Holt. His health was a real challenge, and the band's creative differences only made things harder. In 2005, the band briefly reunited and even released demo tracks online. This was with the original members, Bill and Chris. Meanwhile, Tom Maxwell co-founded the band Hell Yeah alongside Vinnie Paul from Pantera and members of Mudvayne. What a fucking supergroup. And for those of you who don't know who Vinnie Paul is, that's the drummer of Pantera, also Dimebag Darrell's brother. A real Alex Eddie Van Halen situation going on right there, and it makes sense. And Mudvayne's fucking iconic, amazing songs like Dig and Happy. And by 2009, the band was over for good. On April 15th, 2017, Matt Holt passed away at the young age of 39 from a degenerative disease. This closed the books on the band's potential of ever having a reunion. In May 2017, some former members reunited briefly to perform their song off of Violence called For All the Sin. His voice was aggressive yet melodic, harsh, accessible, and remains to be one of the most distinctive in the late 90s and alternative metal scene. This band had a ton of talent and originality that made them special. Although the band never reached their full mainstream potential, I do think they made an impression on a lot of fans and a lot of other bands as well. I think some of the internal struggles just came from these medical issues and turmoil that was happening amongst the members. There was a lot of pressure. As things were going good for them, everything in their life was falling apart, and the band members are the closest people to you, and they were just kind of lashing out at each other, creating hate towards one another. And they needed to be in good health and good spirits to have that positive attitude like they did to get to the point in their career that they were on Ozzfest and MTV and making the album Skeletons that really put them on the map, because those are the songs that I remember. It's that music video. They didn't have a ton of music videos, but it's the one of them in the white room. Some bands should be way bigger than they are. They have amazing riffs, great live performances, and catchy songs. His voice was aggressive yet melodic, harsh, accessible, and remains to be one of the most distinctive in the late 90s and alternative metal scene. Nothingface was fully clear of talented members. They grinded it out for years, and when they finally released Skeletons and got that opportunity to a mainstream audience like Ozzfest, MTV, Headbangers Ball, they had a music video out, things started to fall apart. I think it's a combination of the pressure and just pure bad luck. And unfortunately, they just didn't make it past that point. But the good news is that their music still lives on, and I'm seeing them show up in comments, and it's just crazy to see how impactful and influential they were to so many fans, and I'm sure a lot of other bands as well. Let me know in the comments if you've seen them live, what your favorite songs are, and some other stories that maybe I left out of the video. My name's Jay Sky. I make videos each and every week. Please subscribe to the channel. Until next time, peace.